what went through your head as soon as you finished this marathon?
Yeah, that was. There's only a few moments that I've experienced something like that. It's after the half marathon and now the full one. You just experience the rush of you put all this work into something and just see the results in a better fashion than you ever dreamed of. It's just an incredible feeling. It's an incredible feeling of self reward. You are capable of doing things that are unknown to you, and that's what really gets illuminated from that. You go into something like this, and then you come out knowing that you can step the bar even higher and continuously seek these challenges, not just like physical, but professionally seeking these challenges and just always chasing that self reward, self fulfillment is what you're chasing, is what I just experienced just insane dopamine right here.
Absolutely,
And
it's a total rush, man.
you get that self fulfillment, and then it kind of goes with you, and it becomes who you are. It stays with you.
Hello and welcome. My name is Connor Byrne, and this is episode 6 of I Will Not Quit, the podcast. A podcast about facing challenges head on and persevering and moving forward in a positive direction. Today's guest is a repeat guest. His name is Hunter Stahl, and he's a hybrid athlete. He runs marathons, he trains really hard, and most importantly, he's from Michigan. We both went to Central Michigan together, and now he resides within the Dallas, Texas area. But when he's not working, he's training, and he's working on himself, and he's looking to push forward in a positive direction whenever possible. And today's episode is recapping on our first conversation together, talking about training for marathons, training for half Ironmans, and most importantly, moving forward when life presents us difficult challenges. Today's episode is all about how we in the present are experiencing a world, a climate that is short-fused, a climate that can be challenging to navigate, but most importantly, it also offers a lot of opportunities for us to grow. And so today we talk about how we've grown as people, and more importantly, how we're moving forward in a more positive direction. So without further ado, please enjoy episode 6 of I Will Not Quit, the podcast with Hunter Stahl. Hunter Stahl, welcome back to the show. How you been, man?
Doing good, man. Feels good to be back. Feels good to be back on the podcast.
Yeah, this is Hunter Stahl's second appearance on I Will Not Quit, the podcast. Last time we talked, we got to know Hunter a little bit. The last time we talked was many, many months ago, and we were in the middle of kind of like understanding what the new normal was, and we were really trying to understand the challenges that we faced as like COVID conscious individuals. So now that more time has passed, it's time that we really had to check in with each other. So Hunter, I'm really curious to know like what's been going on in your world since the last time we spoke.
Whew, yeah, there's a lot, man. She was last summer. I mean, yeah, everything in my world just, I've been super busy, obviously, with the work, getting promoted, training. Just kind of really, what can I do to keep improving myself these days? This is like a big factor for me.
Yeah, so you're talking about like improving yourself. Like, how do you go at improving yourself during the pandemic?
It's a big switch, man. Definitely, obviously, running has been, I feel like, my anchor through all this. It started in the pandemic, started in 2019, but really amplified in the pandemic. Needed something to latch onto, and just kind of taking that discipline from training every day and having the discipline to go out and do these things on my own, constantly shifting gears, having that physical mentality of getting better, but also transitioning that to the professional world, I think has been a big change for me. And I've seen that in my career. I'm using that discipline that everything has taught me, from like timing, getting in better shape, all that what goes into exercising and getting better, but then taking that into a more professional domain. And just
So when it comes to taking your discipline and setting it into a domain, like I think probably number one is I think in the time that we last spoke, you completed a marathon, I believe.
I did, yes, in December. That was a
Yeah. So
December.
how did that? So just give us like a recap of that. Like, so this was your first marathon, right?
Mm, this is
And why don't you just take us through what you were kind of experiencing, and then how you kind of went through that marathon?
yeah. So the goal started in right before everything happened in COVID. So like right around this time frame, actually, first week of March. It just seemed like back then things were not going my way last year. As for everyone, kind of everything's turning on a loop. But on my 25th birthday, at the time I was really into running before that, but then it stopped for 3 months just because I was kind of in a darker place. Things aren't going my way. Just kind of gave up on certain things, but just made a promise to myself on my 25th birthday. It felt like I just was almost more awake and lived more present in the moment per se, and just kind of made a promise that I was going to run a marathon, going to beat my half marathon time, going to get back into running, and just consistently pursue this avenue of getting better in that retrospect, in my career, in my running career, and so forth. So, I mean, through 6-7 months of training, trained every day as much as I could, up the mileage, just doing everything I can to be a better functional runner. I really attached to the science of running. Was never much of a runner before, so.
So you're talking about the science of running. What have you learned about the science of running since you began this process?
It's definitely like, obviously the Garmin helps with all the data, but definitely just the cadences, the heart rate, the strength, the different mentalities. It's like all these elements that combine that go into not just running per se, but like endurance. But those go hand in hand. So
yeah,
I would say the various elements of running and how that combines to endurance, it just intrigued me. I'm definitely addicted to that adrenaline and what it puts my body through. So
yeah, I mean, a lot of people are afraid of running, and it is something to fear in some ways, but it's also like you're talking about the sciences. You really dialed in, so you're talking about heart rate training. What impact has like having a device that is able to track your data had on your impact as an athlete?
Insane. I was running without any device for maybe 4 or 5 months and was almost plateauing at the same level. Couldn't level up on what I was doing. I was running 10-minute miles. Like it was pretty bad. But I mean, at the time that was good for me. And once I got the device, seeing like I didn't even know this stuff even existed. Cadences, heart rate, all that stuff that kind of goes into what makes a good runner, what makes a good endurance athlete. And then having access to this technology is just influence it in a way that it definitely upgrades your training, but you have to put in the work to pay attention and have the discipline to keep up with the training, keep up with the data. It's just making sure you're logging it in a way that makes sense for you, and you're going to level up if you pay attention.
Yeah. So you get this watch, and you're running. You see this difference in not just a plateau, but you continue to rise based on the data. In terms of where you were at to getting to your, and you can tell us, the time and the data and stuff, but, when was like the moment that you kind of got the watch, and then what was kind of the data like then versus, get us into like, what your final results were just for this marathon.
Yeah, so I got the watch in August, and that was at the time I was already past the build phase. I was just running. I was in good condition. Yeah. So I had a good base starting out for pre-data, pre-everything. So once I got it, it just leveled up from there. Kept getting better, paid more attention to the data, kept getting faster. And through August until November was the key marathon training days. Just ran as much as I could, did my own training schedules, 7-mile threshold runs, 15-mile runs. Never made it to 20 miles. I should do that next time because I probably could have got a better time. But for me at that time, I just wanted to finish the marathon. I didn't really care about the time at that point, but now I do. So, because I know it's possible and it's very feasible with all the work that you can put into it. So through those build phase until November. December was the day, tapered for 3 weeks, and we ran my first marathon in under 4 hours, 3 hours, 58 minutes at a 9-minute pace per se. Incredible. Loved it.
Yeah, for a self-coached marathon, I mean, that's fantastic. And I've run half marathons and felt pretty casual at like a 9:30 pace, but to do that for a full marathon, I mean, that's extremely impressive. So, congratulations on that. Because like It's you're talking about that like that level of unknown. You're kind of like entering that like unknown dark area where it's just uncharted territory. Perhaps marathon is like a really good process of understanding that there are things that we will not know. There are things unknown to us in this world, and the only thing that we can do to approach the unknown is just to approach it, to just walk into it and take everything that we get in stride.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And it just kind of stems from, you have to remove fear from the unknown. You have to go into it. You have to tap, everyone has this switch or leader, whoever you want to be the greatest version of yourself in them. You just got to tap into that person and consistently look for ways to seek the unknown, I guess, per se, remove fear from anything. And you can do it.
Yeah. It's when we remove that kind of like coupling to us, when we can remove that collar, we can really break past that barrier of fear. We really get into new places. So you finish this marathon, and a lot of people experience maybe a level of unknown after that, which is like, well, what's next? In terms of what you could experience after the marathon, what went through your head as soon as you finished this marathon?
Yeah, that was, there's only a few moments that I've experienced something like that. It's after the half marathon and now the full one, you just experience the rush of, you put all this work into something and just see the results in a better fashion than you ever dreamed of. It's just an incredible feeling. It's an incredible feeling of self-reward. You are capable of doing things that are unknown to you. And that's what really gets illuminated from that. You go into something like this and then you come out knowing that you can step the bar even higher and continuously seek these challenges, not just like physical, but professionally seeking these challenges and just always chasing that self-reward. Self-fulfillment is what you're chasing, is what I just experienced. Insane dopamine right here.
Absolutely. It's a total rush, man.
You get that self-fulfillment, and then it kind of goes with you and it becomes who you are. It stays with you.
Yeah, it's when you're sorry to cut you off. I don't know if I was.
Oh no, yeah, no worries.
So when it is truly like it becomes a part of you that like now that you've accomplished this one thing, you feel that rush of accomplishment. Perhaps something that I've even yet to experience, just because my Ironman prep was cut. And I never was able to complete my full Ironman, and I've come back down to a build phase level. For me, that adrenaline rush is still something that I chase, and that's probably the one. Like, there is a level of closure that you have that I do not. But I believe it's interesting to see two people in different places with similar levels of training. When it comes to endurance training, is you have this level of closure. Just by doing something like that. And I have half marathon experience and being able to push myself to certain levels, but I really look forward to the time where I can actually be competitive amongst other peers that are in that similar area of their life of endurance training. And then, so you were talking about this adrenaline rush and about it, and I said, what's next? And I know for you hit the marathon, and then even before you finished the marathon, I really foresaw you. I think we might have even touched base just a little bit on how you were looking towards doing something like an Ironman or a half Ironman in the future. Mm-hmm. So is that on the table now?
That is most certainly on the table. We will do a 70.3 half Ironman this year, and then 2022, getting coaches ready, we are going to attempt to complete a full Ironman. 140.6.
Sweet. So you're doing the 70.3. Is that in your state, or where is that going to be located?
So I have a couple options here, depending on if I feel comfortable, and I'm kind of speeding up the process in my build phase right now. There's one in Lubbock, June 27th. I'm eyeing that one. The more one that makes most sense and probably more feasible, which I'm also eyeing, is Ironman Waco. And that's in October.
October? Yeah, I mean that's a great time to do it. I think just for the heat, if you're going to be doing it in Texas, and then I think just the amount of building that you can do. Cause like I'm going to be doing mine in August and I'm really starting I'm building now. And it's, so I'm building now, but I'm not worried because I've gone through the process once. So I know I can do it again. And I can
you have that
get
scar
better.
tissue.
That's the thing is like, I might not have the closure, but I also had the confidence to know like I did it once, I'm going to do it again. The only thing I'm afraid of literally is time because there's so many different things I want to devote myself to. Whether it's talking to people like you on a podcast or, trying to improve my career is, at the end of the day, like that is kind of like my nirvana was in, being able to sit on a bike for hours and hours and hours and just pump gas. So, in terms of so you said you were doing a 70.3, what maybe has changed for you from Ironman prep or from marathon prep going into building for an Ironman or half Ironman?
Yeah, obviously running is familiar territory, and biking and swimming for me are very uncharted. Obviously, I think I was pretty good on the bike when I was younger, but there's definitely so much levels that go into it. The FTP, I think that's right. The FTP,
Correct.
How much power watts you're producing, like your endurance, your heart rate, all these different levels that go into biking. Especially swimming. Swimming is by far the hardest and by far the most challenging.
For runners, especially.
Especially kind of at my weight. I'm weighing about, I think I will tackle this Ironman at 195. Jesus. And it's like for swimming, I love swimming. And that's what draws me towards Ironman prep. I love learning new disciplines. I love being the sponge to these different disciplines. And it makes everything more engaging. The training is never boring. I'm never just, like I might be sore, but I'm never, I dread this. I will never dread something because I enjoy learning these new disciplines. Obviously taking on biking and swimming and running, combining them. It's been a blast so far. I mean, I'm self-coaching myself again. I'm obviously looking at training guides and different stuff, but if you get the triathlon bug after this one, I might consider getting coaches. Obviously with experience, you kind of can coach yourself, but
you're talking about like self-coaching, like, what has been your process of self-coaching yourself through, say, a marathon or through Ironman prep?
Yeah, I feel like it's very self-guided in terms of it's very free-flowing. I don't follow a strict agenda, but I've noticed for my body and the way it runs like really efficiently, that is the best for it. It's free-flowing. Whatever I'm feeling that day, I usually will do it. And I'll obviously have something mapped out, but it's not followed to a T. I either will do swimming, biking, running one day, or I might just do running, or I might just do strength training one day. Just depends on kind of like my mentality that day, how I'm feeling, how my body's feeling, and just kind of free flowing with it. But I feel like in that prep of just in this state of free flow, it's been way more beneficial for me, at least in terms of not playing that strict guideline.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that you put it as like free flowing. That's kind of how I approached prep. But even if I were to transcend this to people of the viewing audience, is that whatever thing that you're doing for the first time, you should really focus on your experience. Focus on what you're getting out of this. Focus on how you're feeling and document as much as possible because this is the most fun I think that you'll have when you go into something is training for these first endurance events, especially because they're very raw emotions. It's not rotary. Like if you're in, the midst of your third, fourth, fifth marathon prep, I mean, it can really be redundant or be the same thing. It's a repeated process.
Yeah.
And really to just make it fun because like at the end of the day, like we all do this we're doing it for competition. Obviously we're competitive people, but to be able to do something like this, you should still be able to enjoy the process. In fact, maybe that's like, that would be the biggest takeaway for somebody who's starting an endurance event. You just started your endurance journey, so have I, but I think something that we've done across the board is like we've felt the up and the down. We haven't had a coach tell us what to do next. It's really been self-fulfilled. So if we've been feeling bad one day, or you're saying you were in this dark place, I've been in that same position where at both points of our lives, we've walked away almost just for a brief moment. And then we've realized we need to come back to these disciplines. in order to really feel the satisfaction that we desire. So your self-coaching, were there any major materials that you were using to kind of approach this self-coaching method?
So what do you mean by that? Like equipment wise, or just like
More like,
prepping?
are you literally just are you like, what educational materials are you using to approach something like this? Because like a lot of this is like, obviously you can feel it, but what are some educational materials that you have personally experienced in training for a self-built half Ironman or self-built marathon?
Yeah, so I do leverage my network among my friends, college, people that have experienced these endurance events. I try to learn as much as I can from online, whatever, like swimming better, swimming 101, biking 101, running 101. Always open to new information, what I can do to make myself better. But a big component, one of my friends, Mark, he crazy awesome biker, and he's been giving me tips on how to approach this, what bikes I should be using. Swimming, obviously I've seen some of your videos. I take some of that, so I take away anything I can that I feel will be beneficial for me and what my training schedule dictates. So I think that's the beauty of being being new to any craft. You need to be this open sponge. You need to be this open person that takes in this information, recognizing how you feel, and then assessing that, and then performing. But everyone's got their own process, but that is what I've been using for me. It's been working pretty well so far.
What do you think is your strongest, what do you think when you get onto the race line, what's going to be your strongest discipline is your guess?
For right now it's running, but I want to be on that finish line saying that it was biking.
You're built like a cyclist, so like if you
runner.
And I'm honestly, if there's anything I'd ever interject on somebody like you, it's that like I would love to see you lose like 10 pounds during this journey and go like slimmed out, and then you're like finishing like the bike, and you're so light on the bike that you hit the run and you just fly. Like it's almost like taking the Goku weights off, you know? Because like, look, perhaps this is where like I wanted to talk to you about this a little bit, because like I don't share this with a ton of people, but I know it's been evident in some of the pieces of content that I put out online is like, I love endurance training, but I also had to like, Michigan plays with your emotions and it plays with your physical
the weather,
abilities.
man, you can't control it.
You can't, and perhaps the hardest thing for me is like these wicked cold or snowy winters. Like running during the winter for me literally hurts my joints. The cold really hurts my body, and like I'm not gonna, in the back of my head I had this like Goggins voice that's like you're a wuss, but for me like I at the end of the day, like the pandemic does certain things to us where maybe you've felt this, but sometimes you just have to do something during a pandemic that makes you happy, not something that makes you better or worse. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Something that just makes you happy. It doesn't hurt you, but just something that brings you fulfillment, that short little bit of joy, because there's so much less to be enjoyed in kind of the generalized world right now.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to that, like something that I fall in love with is bodybuilding, and it's like an addiction because
I've seen you getting bigger, man. I've seen that. I'm like, okay.
it's like a whole different world, because I don't have to like yank myself out of reality for however long with no headphones and just run around a lake and stuff. Like I've really been enjoying walking away from endurance just a little bit, just dip my toes into the bodybuilding world and be like, oh wait, I totally enjoy this, and I can see the benefits that both sides can have. So like my bodybuilding journey has really helped my swimming journey. So like in improving my upper body strength, my swim, like I could barely get across a pool in less than a minute when I first started. And now I'm ripping, like my fastest lap that I just recorded was a 30-second, 50 meter there and back. So like just the difference I've had in upper body strength just from changing these disciplines is like profound. So perhaps what I wanted to interject is like, sometimes you like in going with the flow with what you're talking about is like, sometimes you have to go with the flow and just kind of like wander off the path just a little bit, or what you believe to be the path, to like, it can improve what you're doing in the present, in terms of like what your ultimate goal is. So like I wandered off into bodybuilding land, and I was like, yeah, getting yoked is pretty fun. But then I come back to Ironman and I'm just gonna be like, I know this is what I love, but like all the benefits that I've received and all the fun that I've
Again, now
had
on
joining people.
display. Yep.
So, that was something that I wanted to share with you because like when we first met, like we talked about it last call, like, last year was like when I first met you, you were like, what, above 200 pounds, like getting absolutely
225,
jacked.
yeah.
225 and you're 190 something.
Yeah, I lost 25 pounds in the midst of like 3 years. Yeah.
So, I mean, like that's so
was
much.
a square.
I remember you sitting down during St. Patty's Day, and I just saw you. Like you were just sitting down in our house, and I just was like, "God, Hunter's just huge, just a big man." And then I think that day too, I got the full wrath of you because you wrestled me in front of your apartment.
Oh, dude, I do remember that. Oh my God.
I drove this poor man home on St. Patrick's
Oh,
Day,
that was a mess.
inebriated, to say the least. And I was the sober driver. And then Hunter's like, "You went to CC, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And then you're like, "Wrestle me, bro. Wrestle me."
And I was so mad.
So, we wrestled and everything. I was just like, God, this guy's so big. And I realized that, I was physically not where I could have been. So maybe that was like the start of our slow journeys. Like we traded blood, but I mean, look where it's gotten us now.
Love it.
So it's, so we're going through a marathon, we're going through Ironman. But the pandemic is not just about our physical, capabilities. Like we had this goal in mind, this unknown of let's finish the Ironman. Let's get this moving. So first off, I really want to say, I wish you, the best of luck moving forward in this endeavors. Like a lot of times this stuff is super isolating. So, you should continue to, like, you post stuff on your story. You should continue to keep people updated because I think at the end of the day, like this stuff is hard. And nobody's ever going to give us the credit that I think we give ourselves is like, sometimes we need to pat ourselves on the back or pat each other on the back because it's hard.
Oh, absolutely. I love giving those updates too. Like, I think it's a good way just to show what you're doing and just to keep everyone involved, especially we're all alone here. I mean, the pandemic, just in this unique environment, you got to keep people in the circle, got to keep people what you're doing. I think it's important. It definitely goes a long way.
Perhaps that's a good way to step off too, is like, how has your communication style changed with people in your life now that we've experienced a full year in a pandemic environment?
It's a good one. I feel like in the beginning of the pandemic, I took everything that I didn't want to have anymore, and now I'm taking everything that is way better for me in terms of communicating with people. And obviously everything's digital, but I think I've really improved my communication style with people. And that's a super big accomplishment for me. I'm always trying to improve communication skills in general. But really the pandemic, a lot, like just from that isolation, you really get to be introspective and say, oh, I don't like that part about me. Oh, I like this part. And then you kind of pick and choose. And that's the beauty that hopefully people experience to become better in this year of isolation, in a sense, just to kind of pick and choose what you want and who you are going to be moving forward. So, and I think I've really been introspective about that, and I like what I see so far, and I hope I continue on this new path that I've kind of displayed for myself, just from all those introspective lessons, kind of learning and being true to myself, kind of looking inward a lot more compared to what I was before this environment kind of preached us. So I think, I mean, for the most part, I've improved so much, and, I hopefully can look forward to improving even more.
So in terms of improvement, what is something that you have gained out of this experience in terms of your understanding of yourself? Like, what is something about yourself that you understand now that you probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to understand if this hadn't happened?
Yeah, it all stems from awareness. I feel like I was on autopilot. It's a weird feeling. Looking back, I feel like I was on autopilot for a long time. I wasn't truly aware and present in the moment. A lot of the times I was, and then most people, you go in and you go out, you go in, you go out. For me, that was I would go in and go out, but I never really truly recognized that. And now from this experience, I feel so much more aware of like who I am, who I want to be engaged with, what I'm feeding into my mentality, who I'm like, just surrounding myself with, and who I want to be surrounded by with. It's just that awareness mixed with all the parts that I said, taking the good parts and taking the bad. Hopefully, I've taken all the good, and people have seen that, and just being this aware, just living more in the moment, and not caring on what things I can't control, but having that awareness and then continuing to develop that awareness and moving forward. Just being the nicest person you can. Just gotta be the kind person at the end of the day.
I absolutely vibe with you on like controlling what you can and letting go of the things that you can't, because like there are, I think perhaps that was the autopilot, is control, is being able to just control this. What were you gonna say?
No, I just agreeing. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's being able to just like, not control your destiny, but really to influence in a major way like how you kind of approach like fulfillment. Fulfillment for the longest time has just been like kind of like what you make of things, but sometimes it's about letting go and seeing what course your life takes. Perhaps I can relate to that in the sense that I went from broadcasting in the world of design and stuff, and I've really fallen in love with nutrition. I've really fallen in love with helping other people achieve their goals, whether it be nutritionally, physically. Just in the course of 4 to 6 months of kind of like amateur coaching 1 to 2 people. Now I've really understood that like perhaps my destiny, or just my path in life, is to take the skills I learned early on, like broadcasting, and use a podcast or use social media or use these different things. It's all culminated into really, to be in service to other people, to help other people achieve what they want to achieve and to achieve fulfillment. So whether it be like, if I found more people like you in my life that wanted like nutrition coaching, like being able to serve individuals in nutrition, or to be able to serve to build their brand, like if they wanted to just help broadcast to other people, or if it's to really go back to school, but for nutrition of all things, like to be able to go to school and learn more about this industry, and potentially maybe even it's a goal in like 10 years to maybe create like some type of nutrition forward, maybe some type of like community-based triathlete gym, something where you grow the community but you also teach people the different disciplines, and it doesn't have to be triathlon. It could be each individual discipline, and it's a community basis of bringing people together to be in service to each other. So the pandemic, you're talking about letting go of control of the certain things. For me, it was letting go of like just a vice on one idea. Like I could just be a designer, just like you said, you could only, you could only be one specific thing in your life. How has your professional life changed over the course of the time that we haven't spoken?
Yeah, and it's such a good point that you bring that up. Like once you really identify that you're not only directed towards this one career path, once you know that there's so much more out there, there's so much more that you can learn and so much more that you can go after and kind of consume, that's when things start to change. And just from my professional life, so last time we spoke, it was just a true heartbreaker that I didn't get the role that I wanted to at the time. It was a management role, and I worked really hard. I had a great support system that I thought like we all worked together for this, and we had a team that we built around each other, encouraging each other to be this manager role. And I didn't get it. And it was really heartbreaking because I was one of my only friends at the time that didn't just get that role. And there was a lot of, I guess now there was that state of unknown. But I think it goes back to who you surround yourself with, identifying that this is not the only career path for you, identifying there's so much more out there to consume, which then leads you to what can I do better to not only improve myself, but just continue on that path of going into that unknown and exploring what hasn't been explored yet for me. And that became just this new engagement path. I had the support system each and every day. They encouraged me to continue with this goal. And, we made our way back. And I think it's just an insane amount of resilience of character, discipline, just from myself identifying that this is not the only one, but consuming everything that I can to be better, come back stronger, and continue on this new path, and letting go of that control of, oh, I didn't get it. What's next now? Instead of like just having this free flow, making sure I'm doing the best of what I can do. And, we put everything in and the results came my way. And it was that same feeling that I got when you run the marathon, run the half marathon, you feel that self-fulfillment. But just having the resilience, having that discipline, going into the unknown and just not being afraid has been the biggest change from identifying that this wasn't the only career path.
Yeah. So you were talking about like what's changed about your role professionally. Like, you can go very surface level, but like, my like, for instance, my position really hasn't changed all that much within the span of a year. But I'm going through kind of this merger and really approaching my job as if it's a new job now. So what has changed in your role professionally that like, are you learning anything new? Like, are you in a new role? Are you learning new skills? Are your priorities different in your career? Like what's different now from when I saw you last?
So yeah, I'm in the management role now. I am different functions. The last time we spoke, I was in the finance sector for Gartner, but now I'm in the human resources, selling to HR executives, providing them whatever they need, best practices, all that to just help them be better at their organization. But what's really different here is that you're running the full sales cycle. You have full autonomy over your own territory. Not that I didn't have that last time, but I didn't run the full sales cycle. That's the biggest difference. Now I run the full sales cycle. I have you're basically the CEO of your own little business here and of your sales territory. And you go in, you have full autonomy, and you dictate how your day goes. You control your own destiny. And that's the best part and the biggest change. Your priority. Once you realize that too, your priorities change, your mentality changes, and the way you kind of interact with the world, I feel really changed. And that's not just from getting promoted too. I mean, you can take that aspect into all your life, but I definitely think me being promoted really brought that to life in a way that, wow, my mentality is getting so much better. This is now what I need to do, and this is how I can make that even better. But I just made it more aware. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're talking about getting extreme ownership. Like, it's up to you whether this ship sinks or sails. Having that level of ownership is obviously something that a lot of us look for. It just comes at different times in our careers. So, the fun part potentially maybe of like going from your instance of being able to see a full sales cycle is like, the fun part about being in a position that I'm in is like, I've had these opportunities to like grow a brand or to grow a nutrition business, and I would love to continue to grow it. The hard but the fulfilling thing is like being able to grow it from the ground up and having that extreme ownership that like this thing sinks or sails based on your input, and there's literally nothing else. Like when I'm at my work, my input is my input, but like the company as a whole, like I have no control over that. Like I'm just a pawn in that. So being able to be at every part of an entrepreneurial battle, in terms of building my own business, I can relate to you in that when we have this extreme ownership, this responsibility, that we grow at rates much higher than if we were just given little tidbits along the way. Because I'm sure you can imagine just how you go from where we were last year, where like you said you were in a dark place. You weren't given, I think, potentially the responsibility of fulfillment. Like you weren't given the responsibility, and there was a reflection in the amount of fulfillment you had in your work, versus now you've got all this responsibility, but now that you have this sink or swim mentality, like you've really found this level of satisfaction in what you do. I think that's probably something that could apply to people as a whole. On the whole, is we're not just when we understand our value, maybe it's not even in our careers, but it's in our communities or it's in the world around us, that like it's up to us. It's our responsibility to be the best versions that we can of ourselves. Because when we don't let our light shine, in a sense, we don't let the world down. We just don't give the world, what it's asking for, which is for you to be your best self.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then if you don't give the world that, you start to feed yourself negative energy, and then you just go down this rabbit hole of not good stuff that you want to be in.
Yeah, negative energy is like it's intoxicating. It's something that you can get wrapped up in so quickly, and then after a while you recognize just like that negative cycle that you're in, and it's a vicious cycle. But like, especially with sales, I think sales is a great profession for so many people because, and maybe it's great for triathletes or something, because you have to hit.
You have a lot of flexibility. Yeah.
You do hit that level of unknown every single day, and you have to be like, well, I have to break through this somehow, and it's just you just break through the ice in whatever way you can pound your head against the wall. So, in terms of what you're doing, I feel like you're doing something that you're absolutely called to do, and like also that I think something that's great about the pandemic is potentially you're talking about this awareness that at the end of the day we are exactly where we're supposed to be. Mm-hmm. That we have a certain level of responsibility for where we need to go, but at the end of the day that the world there's not a predestined plan, but that we are exactly where we need to be. We put in the amount of work, we put in the amount of time, like we are growing at exactly the rate that we are supposed to. And if we can accept that rate, then we can begin to grow in every like current situation that we're in.
Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest challenge. People don't accept it. You got to accept the rate. You got to put in the time, and you got to accept like what's been given, and then keep going, moving forward, keep improving. But you got to accept that rate. And that was a big thing for me too. That kind of stemmed from the dark place, not accepting it, feeding myself negative energy. Like you said, vicious cycles, goes back and forth, not accepting bad energy, and it's just draining until and then you let it get to you. It just doesn't stop.
Yeah. Perhaps maybe like what's something that you would tell someone who is in a vicious cycle? Like there's a lot of people right now that are still struggling. Mental health is just at an all-time high, or maybe all-time low. Absolutely. If you want to look at it from the statistics, but or in terms of low of like mental strength. What's something that you would tell somebody that is struggling right now? What's like something that you've struggled? What would you tell your struggling self just a few months ago, knowing what you know now?
Yeah, I would tell that person or myself, looking back, you are of value, and you have to find it within you to appreciate like what's been given around you, whether that be the challenges. Those challenges shaped you, who you were, but you are not the same person you were a week ago. You weren't the same person yesterday. You weren't the same person a year ago. It's up to you to show the value that you are. You are of value, and now it's up to you to prove that value to the world, the rest of the community, your friends, your family, everyone. You are of value, and we have so much power that we don't realize in that. And once you're fully aware of that power, like there's no stopping you. You can accomplish anything. So it stems from you are of value, and this is a rough time, but it's up to you to find that value and then put it on full display for the world to see. And it's a beautiful thing once people realize and understand that, and just once they understand their own value, it's a beautiful thing.
That's well put. I appreciate your saying that, because things might be things might be opening up, especially in the state of Texas. It's just totally open.
Governor Abbott. There we go.
Totally open. No masks. Do your thing. Objectively, things are potentially opening back up. Sports are selling limited tickets, all that jazz. We are understanding as a society where we might have gone too far, but we can understand where society is going too little in terms of what we can do to sustain the culture. So as a stepping off point is like we've kind of seen the ups and the downs of our journeys thus far, and knowing what those journeys are. How do you foresee like your next few months, I mean, if we check in, say in a couple months from now, I mean, what do you think you could see yourself doing in like an open world? Do you see yourself doing what you do now, like the way that you see things, or will you take some of the little things from like, maybe a better question. So I posed this question a little while back in my head, but when the world opens back up, there are going to be, quote, like normalities that we experience from the world that we were once living in. Mm-hmm. Are you going to go back to a lot of what those normalities were, or are you going to really are you going to see yourself really wanting to stick more to the routines and the things that you've built for yourself now?
Yeah, great question. And I don't see myself going back.
You don't see yourself going back? That's really cool.
I don't see myself going back. No, I will accept the normacies. Obviously, yeah. I'm going to enjoy those, as would anyone. With opening back up, I think it's a great thing for a lot of people, especially in the mental health space. But in terms for me, obviously, like all this environment, COVID, it was a horrible situation. But I really took that time to develop and really look inward and introspective on who I want to become, what I can improve on, what did I struggle with before all this happened, why was I angry with myself this whole time, and then taking everything that I learned and having these routines, being introspective, and now moving forward, I just want to communicate the best I can be. I'm going to take the routines that I had and we're going to continue with those, but yeah, in 2 months, I mean, I'm still gonna be this new person that I continue to be, and in 2 months I'll be a different person as well. But I will stick with what I've become from this experience, and I think it's all for the better.
Absolutely, it will be interesting to see what other people do, with relation to, how they revert. I mean, like, I think I saw like a TikTok or something that like bars in Texas were already like packed again or something like that.
I mean, Texas in retrospect has already been open this entire time, which is kind of bad, but yeah, now it's like fully open. It was open, but with capabilities set on them, and now 100%.
Yeah, because we're living in two different states.
Yeah, very open, and then Michigan has been.
They actually.
You guys received less restrictions now, but
the state was rated. I think it was like, I don't know if it was independent polling or whatever, but I remember seeing there was some independent research and polling done that one of the mentally like worse off, one of the top 3 mentally worse off states, or top 4, and really? One of them was Michigan, in terms of just the amount of restrictions that we had and just like the levels of opportunities and job loss that we had within the state. Especially especially with the restaurants, because we double hampered them to the point where like we're seeing something like what happened in California, which is like implosion of those specific markets, because like not only are you limiting their capacity, but these kids can't go to work, and then it's a slippery slope the restaurants can't reopen, and then it's a slippery slope because the kids can't get jobs. So then it's like you're looking at these massive job insecurities, or scarcities. And obviously, like, I would need to do better research on the specifics of that, but that stuff also hasn't come out enough yet to understand the full impact. But so looking at something like Texas versus something like Michigan, like I personally, I think people of Michigan that have trained in Michigan or been a part of a Michigan, or any of these major lockdown states, I think they've experienced something even further to the extent of COVID than maybe somebody in Texas.
Absolutely.
And granted, you went through obviously like a terrible, like the state went through a terrible natural disaster with
2 weeks
these
ago.
roads. But really, if you took that out of the equation, I mean, Texas has really seen many different opportunities that Michigan has not, in terms of what we can do. So, it has left different types of, like you say, scar tissue. So, if I were to even take that question too, is like, I probably wouldn't go back. In fact, I believe my whole life has always been an iteration on itself. I would never look back on, I wanted to be a different type of person. Like, I think something that's important to me is like, the level of, like, it's something that I don't tout out, and it's something that I apply to the rules of AA, but like I got sober 2 months ago, and like I've been stone cold sober for 2 months, and before that, when I was doing 75 hard, I had also was sober. So like, over the course of 3 or 4 months, I've really only been not sober a few days. So over the course of these 4 or 5 months, I've really begun this journey of like sobriety, and something that I want to continue into for the full year at least. And with bars opening up, or with just different activities happening, or people hanging out with each other once again, people are gonna like quote want to have fun, and I really foresee myself like actually limiting myself in the amount of times that I want to engage in certain social opportunities, just on the basis of like, well, what's something that I can do for my business, or what's something I can do for my body, or for these goals that I have. So I like that you said that you keep moving forward, that you're not looking back, because I think that's the right way to look at it.
And it's absolutely the right way to look at it. You have to keep moving forward. It's that sense of fulfillment and purpose that everyone wants to be better. Everyone wants to seek these opportunities, but you just have to be willing to identify and really be aware. And it really stems like what you were saying, like you're identifying certain social situations that you are then going to pursue, whether it be your business, your body. It just seems like you're also from this experience more aware of that concept and those like elements, compared to once you say if this experience never happened, all of us would kind of still like, oh yeah, let's go have fun, let's go to the bar. But, I mean, obviously it's a good thing, but being aware and having the choice, I think is really important for you.
Yeah, I mean, like you're talking about just at the end of the day, I called them distractions. Like I love live music is my passion, and I haven't had live music, and that's the only thing that's made me sad. But live music also adds to that distraction in a sense. Like, okay, well, I had a really busy, afternoon, and then let's go out to the Magic Stick or something and go see a show. That was a pretty typical occurrence because it brought me joy, but also those are the people I wanted to hang out with. And now that I've seen the amount of people that I've met that have I know it's cheesy, but like this growth mentality, these people that stick to the gym, that are religiously there because they need it. The people that I met at Powerhouse Gym, I think it was rated like the #1 gym in Michigan. And I stand by that if it is. I mean, it is, in my opinion, the best gym. And the community that I've found within the gym, it's not just cliche. It's like there's a lot of bodybuilders, but the mentality is ironclad in every individual that goes there.
Yeah, you need to find those people because they push you to.
You feed off it. And it's an energy that's reciprocated through everybody. And people can see when somebody's down or somebody's up, and they can respect each side. Like just some of the people that I've even met, that whether it's like followership or if it's just like you see a dude benching 4 plates and you're like come on, dude. What's going on, but then you look at him, you're like, what, I might not be able to achieve that, but like that is like the dude I want to be around. Like that's the dude that's like absolutely killing it in every sense of the word. So those are the people that I found, and like it doesn't change the fact that I love live music or want to go to shows, but like it just changes how often I do them or what my priority list entails. And that would just be lower. So, you're going to be doing Ironman. You're going to be doing a lot of training, and obviously work is in full tilt. You said you're still playing soccer?
Yeah, I'm part of the Sphere Club down here. It's actually starting up next week. So excited to be back. It's like a community soccer. Love those guys. But yeah, playing soccer every weekend. Starts Monday, I think. So Monday starts throughout the week. Yeah, Monday and Saturday and Thursday.
Right on. So, maybe that's a good stepping off point too for both of us and for the audience too, is like whatever you're doing, like remember to find those social interactions, and it doesn't just have like, I had a conversation earlier with somebody, but like move your body, find those moments to get up, get moving, whether it's soccer or a walk, or finding those new opportunities, whatever it is. Action precedes motivation. Every time that you wanted to go to a run, have you been motivated to do that run?
Hell no. There's going to be days that you're going to struggle, but it's in those days that it sounds cheesy too, but it defines what you're made of, defines who you are, your character, who you want to be. And if you'll look back after that struggle and be like, damn, I did that. And then it's just on this, you gain that momentum moving forward. and you keep gaining it, and there's nothing that can stop you in your way. So it's amazing.
Yeah, it was really cool. Like maybe so I obviously this podcast is called I Will Not Quit, but just in the course of my Ironman training, my first brick run, or it was like I think it was it was a brick bike run that it was like 90 something degrees out. It was like the hottest day of the year. Like for Michigan, it was like one of the hottest days of the year, and I did a brick, and I remember I got off the bike and got a mile into the run, and my calves were like. You just like you know that first time you did a brick run, they're not even just jelly,
they're just
like
heavy. I don't even
heavy. And I just remember like I stopped for like half a second, and I was just like feeling just the all-encompassing pain throughout my body, and then I just said I will not quit, and I just repeated it for 6 miles, and I just did it. You know, I just said it over and over and over. So I actually got that tattooed on my leg. I just did IW.
I was gonna say, is that a tattoo? I was gonna ask you that. Yeah, I love it, man. I love it.
So I got my first tattoo, and I like it because my friend tattooed it for me. Like my friend does
Awesome. Yeah.
He's like a small time tattoo guy, and so I think about him, and I think about like the message, and it's like, you know, even as I age over time, like it's such an important thing for me to like. I remember that I remember that moment. I also remember like every moment that I go through, I can say like, well, I'm just not gonna quit, you know. So, you know, that's why I like talking to you, because you have that same grit about you, that you aren't gonna quit. That like since the moment I met you, you're kind of that dude that's just gonna fight for the thing that's best for him.
You got to, man. You have to find that, and I feel like now I'm really starting to realize that's who I've always been, and it's time for me to accept it, but then improve on what I can do, just on that mindset, and just keep moving forward, keep improving. That's what you got to be. And everyone's different, but you got to find it.
Perfect. Well, I think in terms of the scope of the conversation that we've had, you know, we've talked about, you know, where we came from last call. We went through your marathon prep. We went through our Ironman experiences thus far, some places and things that people can learn from to, you know, self-coach themselves, or to just move into any new goal, to any unknown, that they can approach it with some positive action. We talked about how you've kind of been progressing your career, and how Ironman and just endurance can really correlate with how we approach our careers and our professional lives, what we can do for others and be in service to other people. And we talked about just the community aspect of things. We spoke about how we can get back into our social interactions, but we don't have to go back to what we once were, but instead iterate on what we are now, and maybe take some little snippets along the way and sauce them back into our routine. And we capped it off with saying just never stop, or, you know, never stop stopping, never quit, keep moving forward, because at the end of the day, like, life does not stop, nor should we. So
power behind consistency, everyone. Compounds.
It compounds. Absolutely. So yeah, so I thank you so much for, you know, taking the time to have this conversation with me today. It's always a blast hearing from you.
Dude, yeah, love this podcast. Love the message that you're sending. That's why I wanted to be on it again. So appreciate you giving me the time, opportunity, and hopefully we can look forward to. You got to make it to Dallas, man. You got to come down here.
I do have to make it to Dallas. Now you guys you're open, and I've, you know, obviously I gotta make some free time.
Yeah, we're open.
So I'll definitely make that turn as well, and potentially, you know, we get into contact with some of your friends as well that are motivating you, and, you know, whether it's a cyclist or something of that sort. Like, you know, there's other people in our lives that motivate us, and it'd probably be good to like share what they have to say too. I mean, at the end of the day, this podcast is about sharing what truly motivates us, or what helps us persevere through these tough times. And obviously today's show is kind of an example of that. It's just coming through such a tough time like the pandemic, and as things begin to turn a new leaf very, very slowly, that we didn't quit. And in fact, not quitting got us into such a better place, a new job or a new discipline. So, yeah, until next time, like, I mean, I'm really excited to see where you progress. And, yeah, as always, like, it's just, it's always cool to see where you go, man. I really, appreciate your grit.
Thanks, man. You too. Love it.
Hello, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that episode today. If you like this show or you want to see more episodes, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. For those links and more, check out the show notes.